Good evening and welcome to the July 27th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you with us tonight in the audience and those that are watching from home. At this time, I'm going to ask you to please stand. We have two of our principals, Salem Principal Cia Phillips and our principal at Reeves Rogers, Natalie Hardeman, to lead us in our pledge, followed then by our moment of silence. Ladies.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. Members of the board, you have seen a copy of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as printed?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Communications, Ms. Trail.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Good evening. We want to start out by thanking Austin Wilkes. He is a former Scales and Overall Creek student. He completed his Eagle Scout project in July, and he completed it at Overall Creek. So he did all the landscaping, edging, mulching, everything that requires the sweat to make their hummingbird bee garden just so pretty. So we appreciate those Eagle Scouts coming out and helping us with landscaping, and he actually went around the officially registered monarch butterfly garden at Overall. So he's with Troop 398, and we certainly thank our student alumni. Also, we've had other scouts. Being a scout mom, I'm very happy to say Girl Scouts Ada Vance and Jana Ballou. They did their silver award, and they actually based their award at Hobgood. They're with Troop 2203. They completed a little free library that also includes school supplies. So we actually did a ribbon cutting for them a couple of weeks ago, and we appreciate, once again, looking for our schools, finding a need, and taking care of that. They get their silver projects and gold projects, and we get great things out of it. So thank you to the Scouts. The Bradley Bobcats unveiled their new mascot on signing day. It's quite the dapper little mascot now. No longer a vicious-looking bobcat. So they are looking for suggestions for naming the bobcat. You can send your ideas to Bradley Academy, and there's going to be more information going out to parents, and it'll also be on their social media. So think about a name for a bobcat. I will not be suggesting a name because no one has ever taken my suggestion since I've been here. 10 years, no one has taken my suggestion. Kinder Camp is also happening this week. If you've been in the schools this week, they are the cutest little kids, learning all the basics about going to school. They're learning their new routines. They're just learning where the cafeteria is, where the bathrooms are, how to open a milk carton, all of those wonderful things. It's just so nice to see those little kiddos in our building. I've actually talked to a couple of them, and they are just having a great time. So we appreciate ESP and our schools for sponsoring Kinder Camp. Also, mark your calendars for September 18th. That is a Saturday. The City Schools Foundation will be doing their Back to School Dash. It's scheduled to begin at 7 a.m. We will begin at Overall Creek and run the same route that we have in past years. Also, Ms. Strevel asked me to add to the announcements that Black Fox wants to thank their community partners, River Oaks Community Church and Kids Helping Kids. They had a hugely successful school supply drive on Saturday and actually ran out of supplies and backpacks. So I think they'll be doing it again. Those are your communications, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Wonderful things going on. Introduction of new staff, Dr. Duke.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Ken Rocha to come up to the podium, please. I am very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Ken Rocha. Mr. Rocha will be serving as our new principal at Bradley Academy, and obviously his first act is to name the Bobcat, so we know that too. Right? Mr. Rocha is coming to us from California, where he served as a principal and a district office supervisor for the past 14 years. He has received many accolades over his career, including the fact that his school was a recipient of the California Distinguished School Award in 2020. His experience is deep. He is a strong and relational leader, and he has jumped into our group and immediately become part of our MCS team in a great way. You know, one of my favorite things is after I talk to candidates and interview candidates is to follow up and do reference checks and talk to different people. And this is one thing that really stood out to me on his reference check. It was the statement, Mr. Rocha is an advocate for all students, especially those who might otherwise be left on the margins of a public school system. And so I was so pleased to hear that. So Mr. Rocha, we are excited to welcome you and your family to Middle Tennessee. Absolutely. And we know that you'll be a great addition to Murfreesboro City Schools.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. I think I got the all down.
That was perfect.
And look forward to supporting the Bradley community, and thank you for your trust and support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one other staff member to introduce, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sherry Arnett, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Kathy Presnell. She is going to be joining the instruction department as a 3-6 reading coordinator, and she has jumped right in, right out the gate. Dr. Presnell began her career in education teaching 3rd grade in Chester County, Tennessee. While a member of the faculty at Westchester Elementary School, she served as a classroom teacher, teacher leader, and coach. And in 2016, Dr. Presnell was selected as the Tennessee Teacher of the Year. In that capacity, she served as an ambassador for public education in Tennessee, traveling across the state and nation to give talks, lead workshops, and bring teacher voice to government and nonprofit work. Since then, Dr. Presnell has worked as the Director of Literacy for the Tennessee Early Literacy Network and the Director of Educator Engagement for the Tennessee Department of Education, where she worked in the Commissioner's Office. And most recently, for the past 2 years, she has served as academic coach at Salem Elementary. She received her bachelor's degree from the University of Mississippi, her master's degree and reading specialist endorsement from the University of Tennessee at Martin, and her doctorate in learning organizations and strategic change from Lipscomb University. So we are just thrilled to have her join us in the instruction department. Dr. Presnell.
Thank you, Dr. Duke and Ms. Arnett. This is work that I take very seriously. I'm excited to do it. I'm also humbled and honored to do it with the people I get to do it with. Over the past 7 days, I think I've actually been on the job. I've gotten to go into almost every school and meet with the people, and it just reinforces what I learned at Salem, that we are a truly exemplary group of people who do truly extraordinary work, and I'm just grateful to be a part. So thank you all.
Thank you. Glad to have you in your position. Consent items. Have a motion to approve the consent items as printed.
So moved, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. We have a second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Any question or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. Action items.
All right, our first action item tonight is approval of the 2021-2022 annual agenda. Board Policy 1.403 requires that the board approve an annual agenda at the beginning of each fiscal year. The annual agenda provides information concerning month-by-month actions the board will need to carry out, and we are presenting and recommending the attached annual calendar for your approval.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the agenda for the year. Thank you, Ms. Goff. Have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Settle. Any question or discussion? Ms. Moore?
Thank you. Dr. Duke and I talked this week about, I was sort of disappointed this was on the agenda for this week because I was hoping to talk with him soon about some ways we could maybe build in more benchmarks through the year on both the budget process and the director evaluation process. And I'm not sure, there may still be flexibility in this framework where we can do it, but I think our next meeting is a workshop, and I don't know if it would make sense to talk about this, table this until then. Not sure.
Are you saying we need to add things to the agenda?
Well, our current evaluation process for the director is really kind of a one-time, we check in and that's it, and we never revisit it through the year. And I think it might be beneficial to have more points in the year when we say, let's look at the evaluation, how are we doing? Also, on the strategic plan, and this may be something that will come up this year, maybe it's due, I think. I don't know if any of our budget points or director evaluation points actually tie to the strategic plan, and it feels like the calendar is a good vehicle, I guess, to make sure we have checkpoints for those things. I don't think they're on the current version, and maybe this is something we just want to pick up at our workshop to talk about for next year, or things we could add as we go. So I don't want to derail this for tonight, but I do want to throw that out there, that I think our calendar is something we might want to talk about revisiting in the near future.
And that's fine. I look at this agenda just as a plan, something to go by. We can always change it from month to month and add to or take away. It's my understanding anyway. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you think we need to discuss our agenda more, you want to make well, we've had.
No, I won't. I'll just throw that out there, that maybe we could pick this up again at our next meeting at the retreat
I think
to think about some scheduling.
Ms. Barton?
I just wanted to say, particularly with the budget, I can see what you're talking about, just because the budget comes at us all at once and it's really big. And I'm not saying we could make decisions, final decisions on budgets in October or January or whatever those benchmarks were, but it sure would be nice to, I don't know, I just feel like it could be beneficial, and we'd go into it being a lot more informed.
to kind of be able to chew it up a bit at a time instead of all at once.
I think that would be logical if we have the facts and the figures. I think one reason that we wait to when we do is because we have the numbers and the revenues and all, and because we're getting close to the time that we present this to the city council, our budget. But I have no problem, I don't think anybody else does, on discussing budget items or anything else throughout the year on any meeting. That's permissible, I'm correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we already do that to some extent, because if you think about what we talk about when we talk about finance, we're talking about where we are in the budget as far as the percentage of the budget that we've already used or whatever. So it's not a real stretch, actually, to talk about why are we from October to January, what did we do that specifically use that percentage of the budget. I don't know, I just think that it's a good way to break it up.
Okay.
And maybe how it ties to our overall plan. Is it moving us toward where we
Absolutely.
want to go?
Which is what we're supposed to do, kind of, anyway.
All right, so we have a motion already to accept the agenda, is that right? Do we? Okay. And somebody want to?
Call for the
rescind?
question.
Okay. Well, Ms. Taylor?
The call for the question has to be seconded, and a majority has to vote to agree to call for the question.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I second the call for the question.
all right. All in favor of calling for the question and the vote, say aye.
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 Any opposition? And there is none. Okay, so now, we're going to vote on the motion, and the motion is to accept the annual agenda as printed, with the understanding now that we can deviate whenever we want to on any topic. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right. Next item, contract between CDW and MCS.
Yes, sir. In your packet,
What is CDW?
that is a company, and I'm going to actually let Ms. Zavisa specifically label that when she comes up here in a second to answer those questions.
All right, thank
So in your packet tonight, you'll find a copy of a Sourcewell contract between MCS and the company CDW from our technology department. The contract is for advanced malware protection, software support, and email security. The subscription will last until June 30th of 2026. The total cost of the contract over the 5-year period is $608,094.60, or $121,618.92 annually. The contract is billed annually, and there is no prepayment for future years. This contract locks in the price for the next 5 years and will result in a savings of $15,037 a year for a total of $75,185 in savings over the next 5 years. We are recommending approval of the contract, and Ms. Zavisa is here to define the term, the company's CDW, and answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Ballard?
Thank you, April. In the case of this, what we're about to approve here, or what's before us to approve, this is the lion's share of what we're going to need for malware protection, or is this everything, or are there more bits and pieces to it?
This is the lion's share of our security portion.
Okay, so this is what we're going to say is our security for malware then. But it could be that there's other events that occur that we would need something additional?
These are the large items that we discussed in our meeting recently.
Right.
That provide the layers that we have for security. So if there is anything else, it would be minor.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question?
Mr. Chairman, please.
Yes, sir, Ms. Richardson?
Are you satisfied with the contract's terms and its protections?
Yes, I am.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is this a bid item, this contract?
It's on the Sourcewell contract, so that's one of the state contracts that we're required, or that eliminates the need to have to bid.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
This is who, are we currently in contract with them now?
We actually have been getting these services a la carte
Okay.
for several years.
So that, I heard the cost
basis.
saving thing.
So I tried to, yes, work with them to combine these, and the 5 years gives us a discount, so that's the 75,000 plus in savings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt and approve that contract.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Second by Mr. Settles. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, pay for interim teachers.
Yes, sir, I think that's me.
That is you.
That would be me. The 2021-22 school year, Murfreesboro City Schools will go through a pandemic baby boom. We'll have about over 30 that we know of right now who are going to go out on leave at some point during this school year. Usually we have 12 to 15 to go out on leave. In the recent past, Murfreesboro City Schools have struggled to find interim teachers, people who are certified after the school year starts. So here is what we've done in the past. We pay $95 a day for an interim teacher for the first 20 days. After that, on the 21st day, they get regular teacher pay. Now, if you are a retired teacher or doing an interim for a whole school year, you start out with regular teacher pay. So it's very hard for us to get those interim teachers for those first 20 days. They get $95 a day sub pay for being a certified teacher. We are proposing, instead of paying them $95 a day, to pay $150 a day for the first 20 days, and then they would get regular teacher pay. We estimate that this will cost us approximately $1,100 extra per interim teacher. If we get 30 teachers, and this is a high number because the interim teacher can serve multiple interims throughout the school year. And they only have to fulfill that 20-day sub pay once. Once they do that, they get full teacher pay the remainder of the school year. So we're thinking it may cost us $25,000 to $30,000 extra for this school year. So we recommend approval of this pay increase for interim teachers.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Suttles. Any question?
I had a question.
Okay.
I was just curious to see why we don't pay the certified teachers a teacher salary as soon as we hire them in.
I'm sorry, what?
Why we're not paying the certified teachers, why they're having to work the 20 days with the substitute pay.
Let me give you a history lesson. Back in the good old days, their pay was dependent on the number of sick days that the teacher going on leave had. So if they had 30, 40 sick days, that interim teacher got sub pay for all those days that the regular teacher was on leave. So we wanted to be consistent, because if you had 40 sick days and I was thinking about doing your interim, I'm not going to do your interim. I'm going to wait for somebody who has 5 or 10 sick days, because then I get teacher pay real quick.
I knew that. I've forgotten. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry. I'm assuming this money is already in our budget.
Well, it's in our line item for teacher pay. So, yes.
Okay.
Our interim teachers will get teacher pay. I mean, it's in our line item for teachers.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Increased pay for ESP and a bonus.
That's me again. ESP is a lot like a lot of the businesses around. We're having a hard time finding employees. We're about 50 employees short in ESP, and I'm sure that you all have heard we've had to put a cap on all of our schools. For the first time in the history of ESP, we cannot care for all the children that need caring for before and after school care. So, because if we accept every child, we won't have the staff to do it. We'll be out of ratio, we'll be breaking the law. So we're thinking outside the box, and actually we're brainstorming with Dr. Duke. This was his suggestion, and I liked it a lot. We are proposing to give a $500 bonus to existing ESP employees and new ESP employees between now and November the 1st. If you payable $100 a month for each month that you stay, for a total of $500. And they must work at least 3 afternoons a week. And if you don't, then it's $25 a week. So if you don't work 3 afternoons one week, then you get $75 for that month. So we estimate this cost to be about $100,000. And ESP does have the funds to pay this extra cost, but we're trying to recruit more ESP employees. We feel that once the MTSU comes back in session, that we'll have a better luck with getting those individuals. We're also, our current EAs, we are asking them to work some in ESP. They can work up to 5 hours a week in ESP. We're going to pay them $25 an hour. Teachers, we're going to pay to $30 an hour to help out in ESP. They're already there, so just stay an extra hour. So we're getting creative, and we're hoping to get enough employees to care for all the children who need to have care for.
Mr. Settles?
Yes, I have a question, and you may have answered it when you said they have to work at least 3 days a week. So we have some people that work part-time ESP, correct?
Most of our employees are part-time.
Most of the employees are part-time. So how does that work? Is it by the day or the hour?
By the hour.
By the hour.
They get an hourly pay.
And they can determine, I guess they work with the director as far as scheduling and all of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Our biggest need right now is Mondays and Wednesdays.
Mondays and Wednesdays.
And some of the mornings.
Ms. Moore?
I just had a question. If we approve this, will you all have an ad that we can all share to try to get the word out about
We'll make
this?
sure
'Cause I
you
hate
do.
to hear about a cap on ESP. It's such a vital
Yes,
program.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes, we'll blitz.
Great, good, okay.
You're desperate for ESP workers, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ballard?
That was part of my question. Is this driven by a lack of employees or an abundance of children?
Lack of employees first. We hope to get to where we were pre-pandemic as far as children numbers.
Okay.
But the lack of employees causes a reduction in pupils, because if you don't have the employees, you can't have the pupils, am I right?
Correct.
That's why you had to put a cap,
Yes.
because you don't have enough employees to take care of more students.
The ratio is 1 staff to 20 students, and in pre-K it's 1 to 13. And in special ed, we have lower PTRs on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the bonus pay for ESP employees?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Do we have a second?
Second. Ms. Goff?
Ms. Goff, thank you, ma'am. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Security.
Yes, so tonight we are going to be recommending, as you can tell from your agenda, several policy revisions and brand-new policy recommendations. As you're aware, the 112th General Assembly adjourned back in May, and during that session they passed multiple pieces of legislation that directly impact our work here in the school system. So the policies that we're going to be presenting tonight over the next few agenda items are being put in place to keep us in compliance with recently passed state laws. So the first one is policy 3.205 regarding security. The changes made to this policy include changing the terminology from School Safety Education Officer, or SSEO, to School Resource Officer, or SRO. In addition, it's adding a section specifically on cybersecurity. Public Chapter 335 updated the state school safety plan template to include protections regarding cybersecurity, and we're recommending approval of the revised policy.
We have a motion to approve the policy.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or comment? All in favor of supporting the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And I hear none. Thank you. Let's see. Private facilities.
Yes, sir. This new policy aligns with Public Chapter 425, which allows students and employees to request reasonable accommodations if greater privacy is desired in a multiple occupancy restroom, changing facility, or sleeping quarters when attending school-sponsored activities. And we are recommending approval of this policy.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, that we adopt the policy.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Any question or comment? All in favor of approving the policy, say aye.
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 Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, let me see. Where are we?
Instructional standards.
Instructional standards.
Instructional standards.
Yes, sir. During the last legislative session, several recent changes were made to state law that impacts the material and the content that can be included in classroom instruction. This new policy aligns with these updated state law and specifies that the school district will adhere to state and federal laws regarding content. Adopting this policy is not required by state law. However, doing so allows the board to show compliance with the new standards, and we are recommending approval of the policy.
We have a motion to approve the policy regarding instructional standards.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or comment? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. It's kind of a weak eye. All right, let's see. Interscholastic athletics.
Yes, Public Chapter 40 requires school boards to adopt a policy that ensures student-athlete compliance with new standards for participation in sports, and we are recommending approval of the policy as required by state law.
We have a motion to approve policy on interscholastic athletics.
So moved, so we can.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Now, any question or comments?
I have
Ms.
one.
Moore? Okay.
So I just want to be clear, we have to do this to be in compliance with state law, new state law.
Yes, Public Chapter 40 states that school districts have to adopt and enforce policies to ensure compliance with Public Chapter 40. It specifically states that in the law.
Thank you.
I have a question.
All right, sir.
What sports do we currently have as a part of our extracurricular activities?
Currently, the sports that we are doing that would apply to this law would be basketball and cheerleading.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I mean, I don't think we have a choice, basically.
All those opposed say aye.
I abstain.
Opposers say aye too.
I think we were kind of weak. You want to call the roll for us, please, ma'am?
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Ms. Barton,
Aye.
Ms. Goff, Ms. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Richardson,
I abstain.
Mr. Settles,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes and 1 abstain, so the motion passes.
All right, motion carries. All right, I'm seeing where, I'm trying to, okay. Policy 5.106.
Yes.
Application of employment.
Yes, Public Chapter 211 allows the director of schools to hire individuals with a temporary permit if a teacher with a valid teaching license is not available. This policy change reflects this change in the law, and we are recommending approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. Have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any question or comment?
Comment.
All
As
right.
I understand this, and I spoke with Dr. Duke, this is really the policy that we have in place already by the governor's input, that we are ordered that we can hire across state lines certified teachers from other areas. So this temporary is kind of, it happens, I guess it means temporary for a certain time, and then are they expected to become certified in Tennessee at that point?
So there's actually two issues there. The first being that we do have the provision now, and Mr. Ringstaff, if you need to interject, please do. We do have the provision now that if we have a teacher that has a professional teaching license in another state, that we can look to have that transferred here to Tennessee. The temporary permit would be for someone who has not yet obtained a teaching credential and are in the process of that teaching credential, and we still feel like as they're in that process that they're the best candidate for the position, and so we would hire them on the permit until they fulfill those requirements.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Which sometimes, you know, when you're looking for those hard-to-find areas, ELL, special ed, it's hard, upper grades. Sometimes we have to resort to that.
Have we moved to approve yet?
No, I've got a question, but I'm trying to find what line, it was line 72 on what I was looking at earlier. I guess what my question is, what is the timeline, unless it was worked on today, what is the timeline for acceptance?
14 days.
14 days.
14 days.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, all in favor of the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right. Tenure and non-tenure.
Yes, due to the cancellation of 10 ready tests during the pandemic, there are no teacher evaluation scores from the 2019-2020 school year. Public Chapter 2 clarifies that the two most recent evaluation scores can be used when determining tenure if there's not evaluation scores available during the last 1 or 2 years of the probationary period. So because there wasn't data last year evaluations, we can look at the previous 2 years where the law previously stated it had to be the last year. So we are recommending approval of this policy.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the policy.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Any question or comment? All in favor of the policy on tenure and non-tenure, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, policy 6200, attendance.
Previously, state law required school systems to adopt a 3-tiered progressive truancy intervention plan for students who violate their attendance requirements. Public Chapter 223 specified that that first tier of the progressive truancy plan applies to all enrolled students, and the second and third tier would be required for students who accumulate a minimum of 5 days of unexcused absences. The revision in these policies align with the new state requirements, and we are recommending approval.
We have a motion to approve the policy 6.200 on attendance.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Goff. Any question or comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Policy 6.202, homeschools.
Yes, sir. In order to conduct a homeschool, parents must meet certain criteria. Previously, this included having a high school diploma or a GED. A change in state law, however, now includes that parents with a high school equivalency test, or a HiSET, are now included in this category. So the revision to this policy is adding the new criteria, and we are recommending approval.
We have a motion to approve the policy on homeschools.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or discussion?
I have a question, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Settles.
How many currently do we, I know we may have increased homeschool numbers last year. Have those gone back down to where they were previously?
So we're still registering that. Currently, we have 34 students who are registered for homeschool for next year that have actually filled out the paperwork. Mr. Lyle's office does that. So 34 students have registered as a homeschool student for next year. Of course, we ended last year with around 260.
Right.
But you know, it's still early in the school year too. So I would expect more would come in.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you. All in favor of policy 6.202?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right. Physical examinations, policy 6.402.
Public Chapter 513 now includes an additional vaccine exemption. In the future, any COVID-19 or variant vaccine is required. If it is required of students, an exemption will be granted to individuals whose religious tenets and practices conflict with the vaccination. This policy change outlined is a requirement from state law, and we are recommending approval.
Bless you.
Mercy.
Do we have a motion for approval on policy 6.402, physical examinations and immunizations?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Now, any question, Mr. Richardson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Dr. Duke, do we have similar waivers or exemptions for other vaccinations for MCS?
There is an exemption policy for religious exemptions in our policy, and I'll let Ms. Taylor speak more to how this specific law is written.
Yes, so this law just adds to the existing exemptions. Currently, the exemptions are outlined by the Tennessee Department of Health, and we have to follow their guidelines for the exemptions that are required to enter school. And in the law, there is a religious tenet exemption, but it says the exemption is valid in the absence of a pandemic or epidemic. So this new law changes that to where even if there's a pandemic or epidemic, the COVID-19 vaccine would still be a viable exemption.
And there's no religious test for such a waiver, the veracity of one's beliefs, is that correct?
No, it just requires a parent's written, I guess, for lack of a better word, oath that this is a sincerely held religious tenet.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Settles?
I'm guessing that we're referring to line number 18, and I read it, but I had to read it like 3 times. I don't know that there's an easier way to make this less lawyerly sounding, but just it's not garbled, but it's kind of like really wordy. I don't know if there's a way to break it. I'm not criticizing whoever wrote it.
This is TSBA's recommended language, which is pared down if you look at the actual law. But I'd be happy to try to.
If there's a way on second reading.
But I'm hesitant to try to condense it because when you start playing around with words, you change the meaning of the law.
Oh, I understand completely. I get it completely.
I would prefer that you not do that.
Yeah.
I think this one just has to be convoluted because it's an exception to an exception. So it's like you have to go several layers in. We haven't, so.
But I think I understand what the law intends. Mr. Duke, Nurse Sarah, and I'm sure the principals, if they have any questions about what the law requires, I'm available to answer those questions and help them, as well as parents that might have questions about the law. I'm available to answer those. So,
Ms. Goff?
This may have been covered under Jimmy's question, I'm not sure, but how do we assure that parents don't suddenly get religion to be exempt from vaccinations?
we don't. I mean, I don't have a better answer than that. All they have to do under the law is provide a written oath that, you know, this is a sincerely held belief and
religious exemptions are the only exemptions allowed under law, is that right?
Or medical.
Medical
If a student
or
can't get a vaccination due to a medical condition, then that's allowed as well.
Call for the question, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir.
Second.
All in favor of calling for the question, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the question is called for. All in favor of policy 402? Say aye.
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 Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, 6.501, special education.
Yes, Public Chapter 134 updated state law regarding special education definitions contained in the law and added several exceptions to the physical holding restraint. It was also outlined that physical holding restraints may only be used in emergency situations. We have revised this policy in compliance with the new law, and we are recommending approval.
All right,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or comment?
I have a question.
All right, sir.
I was reading this. Line 45 talks about isolation room. Do we have designated rooms at any of our schools that are considered isolation room, or is that just a kind of a generalized?
That's defined in the law, but it's not a practice we do here in Murfreesboro City.
Okay, so we don't have schools that we can go into and find. I've seen some of these pictures, not necessarily for our school system, definitely, but some where they have isolation booths inside the classroom. I think that is horrible and terrible practice. I know we don't do it here. I kind of want to put it out there because it is in the language of the law that there's an isolation room, which sounds like prison and confinement. And I would not like to walk into any of our schools and see such a booth in use. So that's kind of why I asked the question. So generally, if there's a behavior issue in which the child has to be removed from the room, they may be in the principal's office or they may be in the cafeteria or something like that, correct?
Yes, and the way the law is defined also talks about in the absence of a teacher, and again, that's not a situation we would do here in Murfreesboro City.
And this is under the, I guess, under dealing with special education students, correct?
The law specifically and the policy specifically is discussing special education.
Support behaviors, behavioral support, I'm sorry. So when we talk about regular ed students that are having a behavioral episode, this doesn't apply.
This is specifically for special education students, but coming in January 2022, the General Assembly has recently passed Public Chapter 77, which is the Teacher Discipline Act, which allows the temporary relocation of students, for general ed students, for behavioral reasons. So there will be a policy regarding that.
But the use of isolation
Right.
is not a practice that we do in Murfreesboro City for special education or general education students.
And I'm under the understanding with our special ed, because we have probably the best in the state, our special ed team. I know written in the ISP should be information on how this particular, because it's individualized, so how this particular student will be dealt with as far as behavioral issues, et cetera, et cetera. I want the special ed lady to come and talk.
I was
for
gonna say,
just
Mr.
a
Mayor
minute.
John, it is, we do put that in the IEP specifically if we're going to use any type of restraint, but I'll let Ms. Fairchild
Right,
speak
and
more
if there
specifically.
is a restraint that is due to an emergency situation, then an IEP meeting is called immediately.
And this, all the IEP, et cetera, if there are more restrictive things that have to be put in place, is there an HRC committee meeting that has to take place before we go to more restrictive measures with any of our special ed students?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ballard?
And do we have, who is the designated person to respond to a behavioral issue where it becomes a constraint is necessary?
So we have CPI, which is our crisis prevention intervention team, in every school that is trained. It's an administrator. Usually it's a special education teacher, also maybe guidance counselors or other people who have gone through the training on the appropriate way if that emergency situation arises that we have to act on the proper way to do that to ensure student safety and to ensure staff safety. So that team is always the first one to react and to go to those situations when it's needed.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to approve the policy.
So
pertaining-
moved.
I thought we already had to say.
I thought we already had the motion.
Oh, okay. I thought you said, do we have a motion?
Oh, ma'am, but I am
Sorry.
going to ask you if all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right. Next policy is homebound instruction.
Yes, this is a new policy for Murfreesboro City, and it outlines requirements for homebound instruction for students who are unable to attend school due to a medical condition. In addition, it specifies that students who must be quarantined from school temporarily due to COVID-19 may participate in remote instruction as a homebound student during their quarantine period, and we are recommending approval of the policy.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any discussion?
I have a comment, of course. I know this is first reading, so I was hoping on second reading, because when I was reading this, line 16, students on homebound instruction who are temporarily quarantined due to positive COVID test, I almost thought this was referring to homebound students that are COVID positive. But this is any student who is COVID positive may participate in remote instruction as a homebound student. I don't see that in there, and that kind of threw me off a little bit because I thought it was just speaking of a homebound student because it's in that policy. So I'd like to see some of that wording if possible, if it doesn't change because when he read it, he included the word as a homebound student.
I understand.
So it just would help me, and I may be the only one, and I'm willing to stick my neck out and say, okay, doesn't matter to me.
I don't think rearranging the word in that sentence would change the meaning of the law.
How many homebound students are we going to have this year?
So we don't have that information yet. And so specifically as we look at regarding the quarantine, I want to address a comment. It would be both for students who were to test positive and then also for close contacts that through our contact tracing we said needed to stay at home. So last year under the provisions we had with the continuous learning plans. We were able to do that. The state board has changed that rule and now said if we have to quarantine students, we would designate them as a homebound student and they would follow those guidelines.
And they would be homebound for the time, the length of time that they have to be quarantined, not, in other words, you don't have to be homebound for 6 weeks or a grading period or
That's
whatever
correct.
like that.
So it can be just for the time that they are designated during that period. And Nurse Walker would, of course, be working with our school nurses to determine the adequate time frame.
Thank you.
Ms. Moore?
I think this gets at a question I've been wondering about. So if it's, because we can no longer offer the choice for virtual instruction this year, if students are quarantined, is this is the mechanism by which they are able to still attend class virtually? This is it?
This is the mechanism.
Only one, okay.
That is correct.
I see. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve policy 4.206 on homebound instruction. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
Yes, so the policy 5.3051 was issued in August of 2020 to comply with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. The requirements of the law actually expired in December of 2020, and our policy was written to expire on June 30th of 2021. So what we're recommending tonight is that the board officially repeal this expired policy.
So move.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right. Approval of the budget, amendments and transfers.
Yes, sir. How's everyone tonight?
Very well.
Super, Kim.
I love it. So tonight, we have just one budget amendment before you. It's in our ESP fund, number 146, and this is moving $10,700 out of our miscellaneous other charges account into professional development. And this will cover some training, professional development for a drone club that's just been started, I believe, so. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Ms. Barton?
Yeah, I was curious because I know we've got the ESP Drone Club contract coming up as well. Approximately how many children in the system are involved in drone clubs?
So last year, and I can answer that, that's okay. So last year, we had 145 of our ESP students go through this program, and that included 20 who participated through the summer. This year, we are anticipating around 300 of our students to go through this program through ESP, and that's why it is being paid for out of ESP funds. The PD, which would be the professional development, which is the next contract, is a one-time fee that would allow, as our teachers go through it, or I'm sorry, our ESP staff go through it, because that's who's going through it, our ESP staff going through it, that they would then be able to redeliver it in future years. So it would be a one-time cost. Last year, that 145 were in about 5 schools. The 300 we're anticipating this year in the program. It'll be in all 13 schools.
And about how much do you think we spend altogether?
Mr. Ringstaff, I don't know if you have that information from the ESP budget, but I can get that for you.
Just curious. I've always been concerned about, in basketball too, that we spend a lot of money and it only benefits a very small percentage of the children in our system. Sometimes I wonder if that money could be better spent. And I have nothing against drones. I'm just saying, you know, if we've got.
I actually questioned the cost of it myself, but I don't know that much about drones, so this is probably a fair price, the $10,000. And this is in addendum to what we have already added to in our budget before.
Yes.
So this is just a.
So when in speaking with Ms. Powers about this specifically, so when she created the ESP budget, the budget included the materials and the supplies for the program, and then in the budgeting process, because it is a professional development, it should have been, that allocation should have been in line 599, and she included all of that budget piece in the line item, which is just the other charges line item.
Do
Mr. Chairman.
students have to pay for this club membership and training?
They do not, so it's part of their ESP program.
Okay, all right. Mr. Richardson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Would this $10,700 take away from any other program?
No, it
Would
won't.
there still be a fund balance for ESP?
Yes, yes.
Do you believe it would benefit children in our school system?
I'm sorry.
Do you believe this would benefit children in our school system?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm not saying that it wouldn't, I'm just saying that $10,700 might benefit a lot more children doing something else. So like you said, nothing against drones, just saying that when you spend a whole lot of money and benefit a very small group of children, then
I have a question too.
Mr. Settle?
So it was somewhat already in the budget. We're kind of maybe just moving it to the right place. And it's for the drone program where these kids are going to learn to do the drones and all that good stuff, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's just moving it from
Sure.
one line item
Right.
to another.
Right.
Same money.
So 300 students are involved.
So that's what we're anticipating, that right around 300 ESP students will be able to participate in the program. And then again, we will have the materials and supplies, we will have the training, and be able to continue the program through our ESP, like many other clubs we do in ESP. Of
And-
course, our ESP program does clubs
lot of-
of all different
Right.
kinds, all throughout the year.
Right. And there's not I guess I was wondering about if there's any grants for drone programs or something like that. Maybe I'll get online and Google some stuff.
There was a grant a few years ago through the Department of Transportation.
I thought there was
And it
something.
was $4,000, and by the time the school purchased the drone, it was already obsolete, so.
Wow.
But that's how quickly the technology was changing. But to answer your question, yes, there was a small grant a few years ago.
Okay.
Well, I support the transfer on the budget, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. Next item is Drone Club contract. I guess we already done that in the,
No, sir, we actually need to approve the contract now. So again, our ESP department is seeking approval of the Drone Legends program for 10 hours of professional development. The training will cover topics such as working with drones, setting up and connecting, best practices for classroom, organization and curriculum review. I've already discussed with you the numbers. Last year, 145 students in 5 schools. This year, closer to 300 in all 13. In the future, as I stated, we'll have the ability to carry out on our own with the training, so this is a one-time cost, and we are recommending approval of the contract.
okay?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any question or comment? All in favor of approving the Drone Club contract, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right, reports and information.
Yeah, the first is in your packet tonight, you'll find the placements for each teacher in our district as of last Thursday. So these are provided for you in your packet as far as where all of our staff will be assigned, and we're happy to address any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions on the assignment of personnel? All right, thank you. Do we have to approve that?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
All right. Let's see. Director's update.
Yes, sir, and I have quite a few for you tonight, but I'll promise to go through them quickly and pause for questions as you guys may have them. First of all, I want to say that last week we were excited to welcome our new teachers to MCS officially. On last Tuesday, our HR department hosted our annual signing day to great success. We followed that with 2.5 days of training at MTSU for our new teachers to induct them and to welcome them to Marshall City. So we had about 75 teachers complete those training days. It was absolutely phenomenal. I want to thank Mr. Ringstaff and Ms. Arnett both for planning this great induction program for our new teachers. Again, great feedback from our new teachers. I also want to thank Dean Van Alsdahl at the College of Education at MTSU. They always open their facilities for us, and we want to say thank you for that. My next update, as of yesterday, our school offices have officially reopened for the school year. So our principals returned last week, and our APs and our attendant secretaries, bookkeepers, as of yesterday, everyone is back in the building. I did want you guys to understand that one of the things we're going to be monitoring very closely over the next week is our enrollment numbers. We have been getting lots of registration calls already, and we're encouraging all of our families to go ahead and complete their registration so we can be best prepared for that first day. And we are looking at that information, but we're glad to have all of our school offices officially back open. With that, our teachers do return on Monday, August 2nd. Believe it or not, summer vacation is officially over, coming quickly. So we're thrilled to have our teachers back. On Wednesday, August 4th, will be our district in-service day, and our teachers are going to be working closely with our instruction staff on these days as we prepare for this year. The rest of the week, teachers will be in their schools with in-school-based work days and in-service days. We, of course, just finished up our summer school program. Bob the Book Bus was hard at work this summer as it visited neighborhoods and our summer school sites. It's always great to see Bob rolling through Murfreesboro. So I want to say thank you to Miss Teresa Crouch, who drives Bob, and let you know that this summer we gave out a total of 3,723 books to kids over the summer. So we're really pleased with that. I want to say congratulations to Lisa Trail. She didn't put this in her communications report, so I'll say it. Ms. Trail was selected to serve on the Tennessee Department of Education School District Foundation Engagement Council.
All right.
So serving on this council allows her the opportunity to provide input, feedback, and recommendations to TDOE and the Commissioner of Education. She's going to serve a 3-year term in this post. I will tell you, I believe it is critically important that anytime a Murfreesboro City School voice can be at the table, that we have a Murfreesboro City School voice at the table. So I want to say thank you to Ms. Trail and for applying for the position and then also being selected. Congratulations to her. A press release also went out today. The Department of Education announced participation rates for all districts on last spring's 10 Ready assessment. So as I'm sure you remember, public chapter that was passed during the special session removed all of the negative accountability consequences associated with last year's 10 Ready, as long as you tested 80% of your students. So today we can announce, and I'm very pleased to say, that in Murfreesboro City we successfully tested over 97% of our students.
Fabulous.
So I am just so proud of Ms. Arnett, Dr. Osborne, and their team, and specifically our building testing coordinators who are our APs in almost every building. They really did some Herculean work last year trying to meet the state requirement. 7%. And to get that much done last year, again, I can't say thank you to them enough. When we have robust assessment data on where we are after the past year and a half to have really great, strong data, it allows us the opportunity to make really strong goals. It allows us to really use our data to drive instruction. So we're just really pleased with that number that we have.
That's hard enough to get in a normal year.
Yes, you're exactly right. So.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead, Ms. Moore.
Thank you. When will we know the actual scores from that so we can use them for instruction? So they're still useful?
Yes, so we anticipate having those released in the next few weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
The last update I have for tonight is, as I'm sure you've heard, the CDC has updated their guidance as of this afternoon. So I wanted to let you know that our team just received that this afternoon, just like everyone else has. We were in a principal meeting all day today, so thank you to our principals for attending that. So I wanted to let you know that we'll be reviewing that in the coming days, and we'll keep both the board and parents informed.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else coming before the board tonight, Mr. Ballard?
Just have a question. What is the work that's going on at Northfield in the parking lot? It looks like it's been uprooted. And
yes.
If we're supposed to know that, I didn't.
Yes, sir. So we're working with the city on that, replacing the pea gravel entrance that's at the front of that building. Over the years, it's become damaged, and it has largely due to some different things like the amount of salt being put on it, but it's cracked and it really became a safety hazard. So we were working with the city. They have removed that, and they're putting new new concrete down.
So is that city dollars or Biden bucks or how?
So that's going through the city.
Okay, good. Well, great. All right, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Permission to address the board, please.
Ma'am?
Permission to address the school board.
That can only be done if the board approves, otherwise the proper procedure will have to be done.
Yes, sir, I understand there is a process, but
All right, wait just a second, just hold up. Let me see if the board wants to approve that or not.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we suspend the rules and allow the gentle lady to speak for no more than 1 minute.
For how long?
1 minute.
1 minute, all right? Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Barton?
My only thought is consistency. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do it for everybody. We're not just going to do it one time because,
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't do it sometimes and not do it others. So consistency has to be maintained.
Okay. All right, you have a motion on the floor to allow the lady to speak for 1 minute, and you have a second. Roll call vote, please, ma'am.
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Ms. Barton,
Aye.
Ms. Goff,
Nay.
Ms. Moore,
Nay.
Mr. Richardson,
Aye.
Mr. Settles,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
No.
That's 3 noes and 4 yeses.
Okay. All right, please state your name, and you have, according to the motion, you have 1 minute, and you have something, Ms. Van Cleveland, time. All right, give us your name, please, ma'am, and whatever.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members. My name is Anna Stewart. I'm the parent of 2 children in Murfreesboro City Schools.
Your name again, please, ma'am?
Anna Stewart.
Anna Stewart, okay.
I'd like to read to you today the CDC updated guidelines for schools. It's from the CDC website from this afternoon. Given new evidence on the Delta variant, CDC has updated the guidance for fully vaccinated people. CDC recommends universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. Children should return to full-time in-person learning in the fall with layered prevention strategies in place. And the question I would like to ask Dr. Duke and the school board is the district going to follow public health guidance from the CDC during this public health emergency? And I respectfully request that an answer begin with a yes or a no.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Appreciate it.
I think Dr. Duke has said we're going to talk about that, and he's going to refresh the information that he's received just today. And we'll see if it comes out in compliance the way you wish it to be, or whether we wish it for, in compliance with CDC. So we need to give him time to take a breath. We can accept your recommendation for input, but at this point, it's input.
Okay. Any other comments from board members?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, any other motions from the board members? You have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Good night.
Have we ever actually?